Welcome to Starbound Valor HFY. Subscribe now and dive into daily epic sci-fi adventures, where humanity always rises. The Galactic Council Chamber was older than most stars. Its walls were made of living crystal, glowing softly with the memories of 1,000 conquered worlds. Tall figures from different species sat in a wide circle, their eyes fixed on a massive projection floating in the center of the hall. This was not a normal meeting. This was Judgment Day. Today, the future of one small species was being decided. The species was called humanity. The projection showed a blue planet, Earth, small, fragile, full of noise and conflict. The Council had watched it for centuries. Wars, borders, fear, hope, all repeating again and again. To the Council, humans were predictable, emotional, divided, weak. The High Seer raised a thin hand, and the projection changed. Time moved forward. Years passed in seconds. Cities burned. Oceans rose. Fleets fell from the sky. Then the image stopped. A single word appeared in bright red symbols that every species understood. Extinction. A low sound of satisfaction moved through the chamber. Some council members clicked their claws. Others released slow waves of cold light, a sign of approval. The prediction was clear. In 47 standard years, humanity would end, not by one enemy, but by many small failures. Resource wars, climate collapse, internal conflict. The Council had seen this ending many times before. Another short-lived species, unable to rise above itself. The Supreme Arbiter spoke next. Its voice was calm and heavy, echoing through the chamber. Humanity has reached its limit. They have potential, but no unity. They dream, but they fight each other more than they face the stars. They are unfit for long-term survival. Several council members agreed. One called humans loud animals with tools. Another described them as children playing with fire in the dark. At the far edge of the chamber stood a small group of observers. Among them was a being known as Observer Kale. Kale's species did not rule or conquer. They watched. They recorded. Kale had studied humanity closely. Their art, their stories, their strange ability to hope even when everything was falling apart. As the Council spoke, Kale felt something unusual. Doubt. The projection changed again. This time it showed human representatives, standing in the Council chamber. They were smaller than almost everyone else. No armor, no glowing symbols of power, just simple clothing and tired faces. The Council expected fear, begging, promises of obedience. Instead, the humans stood still, silent. Their leader, a woman with gray hair and steady eyes, looked directly at the Supreme Arbiter. She did not speak. She did not bow. "This silence," said one council member, "is proof of surrender." Another laughed, a sharp metallic sound. "They know the truth. They are finished." The Supreme Arbiter raised a hand again. "Humanity is hereby removed from all galactic protection treaties. Their space lanes will be closed. Their world will be marked as low priority. Observation only." The judgment was complete. Still, the humans said nothing. The woman only nodded once. Then the human group turned and walked away. No threats, no tears, no final words. The doors closed behind them with a deep sound that echoed longer than expected. As the Council moved on to the next matter, Kale remained focused on the empty doorway. Something about the humans' reaction felt wrong. Species facing extinction usually broke down. They pleaded. They attacked. Humans had done none of that. They had listened, accepted, and left. Kale activated a private data stream and began to review live feeds from Earth. What Kale saw did not match the Council's confidence. Across the planet, signals changed. Military channels went quiet. Political broadcasts stopped. Old rival nations shared encrypted data. Hidden facilities, long abandoned, powered on for the first time in decades. Deep under mountains and oceans, lights came alive. Humans were not panicking. They were preparing. Back in the Council chamber, a junior analyst spoke carefully. "There's unusual activity on Earth. Increased coordination. Reduced public noise." The Supreme Arbiter dismissed it with a slow wave. Fear creates order before collapse. Let them pretend. Laughter returned to the chamber. The future had already been decided. Or so they believed. Kale continued watching. Humans were shutting down old arguments. Borders became meaningless. Scientists who had never agreed on anything before were now working together. Not for profit, not for power, for survival. Kale saw failure too. Experiments exploded. Cities lost power. People died. But something else grew stronger with every loss. Adaptation. Far from the Council's view, a human voice spoke inside a dark control room on Earth. "They think we are done," the voice said quietly. "Good. Let them think that." No cheering followed. No dramatic speech. Only work resumed. As the council session ended, the Supreme Arbiter made one final record. Humanity. Status doomed. The archive sealed the judgment. The council lights dimmed, and members began to leave. Only Kale stayed behind for a moment longer, staring at the frozen image of Earth. For the first time in many cycles, an observer wrote a personal note into the official record. It was a simple sentence. Prediction may be incomplete. Somewhere on a small blue planet, humanity took its first silent step toward changing a future that had already judged them dead. The Galactic Council expected chaos. After the judgment, most species reacted the same way when their end was declared. They sent desperate messages. They offered resources, labor, even their own worlds in exchange for survival. Humanity did none of that. Days passed, then weeks. No signals of surrender reached the Council. No pleas for mercy. Earth remained quiet in the ways that truly mattered. From orbit, Earth looked unchanged. Clouds moved. Oceans reflected starlight. But beneath the surface, the planet was different. Human governments dissolved old rivalries without ceremony. Borders still existed on maps, but they stopped controlling decisions. Power shifted away from speeches and into action. Hidden councils formed, not to argue, but to listen. For the first time in human history, survival mattered more than pride. The woman who had stood before the Galactic Council returned to Earth without announcement. Her name was Director Hale. She did not hold rallies or make promises. She went underground, into a facility older than most modern nations. There, she met scientists, engineers, and commanders who had been quietly preparing for a future no one wanted to admit might come. The judgment had only confirmed their fears. Hale spoke in a small room with no cameras. "We will not beg," she said. "Begging teaches them we accept their power over us." No one argued. They already understood. Humanity had been measured and found lacking. Now they had only one choice. Change the measure. Across Earth, long-forgotten programs were reactivated. Projects once called too risky or too expensive were opened again, not to build weapons of beauty or fear, but tools of survival. Humans studied alien technology they barely understood. Wreckage from old encounters. Data stolen at great cost. Nothing was wasted. Even failure became valuable. In one deep-sea lab, engineers tested an energy system based on alien principles. It failed. The station lost power. 27 people died before evacuation. The system was marked unstable, but the data survived. Elsewhere, another team improved it using that same failure. Humans did not erase mistakes. They learned from them. The Galactic Council watched from a distance. Automated probes scanned Earth and reported no major fleet movements. No superweapons. No calls for help. The Council assumed fear had turned inward, as it always did. The Supreme Arbiter addressed the chamber. They collapsed quietly, as predicted. The Council accepted this without question. Only observer Kale remained unconvinced. Kale followed smaller patterns. Communication changes. Energy flow. Human behavior. The data showed something rare. Humans were reducing noise. No grand displays. No wasted motion. It was as if the entire species had taken a slow, deep breath. Kale sent a request to deploy a long-range scout drone toward the edge of human space. Approval was granted. The Council saw no risk. The drone crossed into a region marked as industrial debris. What it found was not debris. Human ships moved through the darkness. Old frames rebuilt with mismatched systems. Hulls scarred and unpolished. They were not elegant. They were functional. The drone recorded their movement. No standard formations. No familiar tactics. The ships changed speed and direction without warning. Some carried no visible weapons. Others carried too many. This was not a fleet meant to impress. It was a fleet meant to survive. Back on Earth, Director Hale stood before a large display showing countless data streams. Losses were high. Progress was slow. Humanity was paying for every step forward. She did not hide this from her people. "We will lose many," she said during a closed transmission. "But we will lose together. And we will learn faster than they expect." For the first time in recorded history, human soldiers trained alongside scientists as equals. Engineers learned battlefield logic. Commanders studied mathematics and systems failure. Humanity was not creating specialists. They were creating adapters, people who could think under pressure and change when plans failed. The scout drone attempted to transmit its findings. The signal cut out. A final image reached Kale before silence. A human vessel passing close, its hull marked with simple words in many languages. "Still here." Kale replayed the image many times. The words were not a threat. They were a statement. Humanity was not asking for permission to exist. At the next council briefing, Kale spoke carefully. "Humans show no signs of surrender. They are reorganizing at a level I have not observed before." The Supreme Arbiter responded without emotion. Order before extinction is common. It changes nothing. The council moved on. But outside the chamber, Kale accessed restricted prediction models. Humanity's extinction timeline began to shift. Not by much. Months at first. Then years. The system flagged the change as an error. Kale removed the error flag and watched. On Earth, a young technician asked an older officer a simple question. "Do you think we can win?" The officer did not answer right away. Then he said, "Winning is not the goal. Living long enough to matter is." As humanity worked in silence, the galaxy remained unaware. No declarations. No warnings. No begging. Just preparation. The council had judged humanity weak because they believed strength came from dominance. They had not considered another form of power, the power to endure. The first sign that something was wrong appeared inside a prediction engine. Deep within the Galactic Council's data core, probability lines began to drift. Humanity's extinction curve, once sharp and certain, softened at the edges. The system recalculated again and again, each time producing a slightly different result. The Council dismissed it as data noise. They did not understand that noise was the sound of change. On Earth, change was no longer accidental. It was deliberate. Human scientists stopped trying to fully understand alien technology before using it. They learned through action. They built, tested, failed, and rebuilt at a pace that shocked even themselves. Old rules about safety and perfection were rewritten. If something worked for 1 second longer than before, it was progress. In a desert facility, a human engineer stared at a device that should not exist. Alien power cells were never meant to connect with human systems. Every manual said it was impossible. The first test melted half the room. The second test lasted 3 seconds. The third test powered an entire city block for 1 full minute. That minute changed everything. Humanity began to evolve without changing its biology. Knowledge moved faster than fear. Data was shared openly across the planet. Nations that once hid secrets now released them freely. The understanding was simple. No single group would survive alone. Every success belonged to all. Every failure was studied by everyone. Observer Kale watched this with growing unease. Humanity was not becoming stronger in the way the Council measured strength. They were becoming efficient. Loss no longer slowed them. It refined them. Kale compared human progress rates with those of older galactic species. Humanity was learning 10 times faster under pressure. No model had predicted this. The Council scouts reported minor incidents at the edge of human space. Listening posts failed. Automated probes vanished. Nothing dramatic. No official battles. Just small disappearances. The Supreme Arbiter dismissed the reports. Predators test boundaries before starving. It said, they will fade. But humans were not testing. They were practicing. In orbit above a quiet moon, a group of human pilots trained in silence. No commands were spoken. Each pilot acted independently, adjusting to changing conditions. When one ship failed, others adapted instantly. No rescue, no pause. The failed ship transmitted its data before self-destructing. The loss was accepted. The lesson was shared. On Earth, families knew the cost. Memorials grew, but they were simple. No heroic statues, no speeches, just names and dates. Humanity did not romanticize sacrifice. They respected it, and then they moved forward. Kale requested deeper access to human space. The Council allowed limited observation, confident that no threat existed. What Kale found was unsettling. Human factories no longer followed standard designs. Each one was different, built around available resources and local needs. There was no single point of failure. Destroying one would mean nothing. Even more concerning was human psychology. Fear still existed, but it no longer controlled decisions. Humans accepted loss as a condition, not a defeat. This made them unpredictable. The Council's models relied on fear-driven behavior. Humanity was stepping outside the model. The first real shock came when an alien patrol vessel failed to return from a routine scan. It was not attacked in open space. There was no explosion, no distress signal. The ship simply vanished. Days later, fragments of its data core appeared on a human research network. Humans had learned how to open alien systems without destroying them. The Council demanded answers. Human space remained silent. The Supreme Arbiter ordered a recalculation of all projections. The result was delayed. When it finally arrived, the extinction timeline had moved again. Humanity was no longer guaranteed to end. The margin was small, but the certainty was gone. For the first time in centuries, the Council faced an unknown. Kale studied human behavior more closely. Humans did not celebrate small victories. They treated them as expected outcomes of effort. Their culture shifted from competition to contribution. Children were taught systems thinking. Failure analysis became a basic skill. Humanity was training its next generation for a universe that did not forgive mistakes. In a quiet room beneath the Earth's surface, Director Hale reviewed a report showing rising survival probabilities. She did not smile. "It's not enough," she said. "They still see us as weak." Her advisors agreed. Strength in the galaxy was defined by force. Humanity would be forced to demonstrate something the Council could not ignore. The opportunity came sooner than expected. A damaged alien relay station drifted near human-controlled space. Its systems were failing. No rescue was dispatched. The station was considered expendable. Humans moved first. They did not attack it. They stabilized it, repaired it, then studied it. Within weeks, human understanding of alien communication increased by years. This act confused the Council. Weak species did not improve enemy infrastructure. Predators destroyed. Prey hid. Humans did neither. Kale added another note to the Observer Archive. Humans do not learn to dominate. They learn to adapt. This may be more dangerous. As humanity's learning accelerated, the galaxy remained blind. The Council still saw humans as a fading problem. But beneath that assumption, a truth was forming. The species once labeled weak had discovered something older and more powerful than strength. They had learned how to learn. Failure followed humanity like a shadow. Ships were lost. Stations collapsed. Experiments ended in fire and silence. To the Galactic Council, these were signs of weakness, proof that humanity was burning through its last strength. To humans, failure became something else. It became a tool. On Earth, human leaders stopped asking how to avoid failure. Instead, they asked how to fail better. Every loss was recorded in detail. Every mistake was shared without shame. There were no hidden reports and no erased data. Humanity understood a simple rule. What was hidden would be repeated. What was shared could be improved. In a manufacturing zone carved into a mountain, engineers built a new class of spacecraft. They were not sleek or beautiful. Plates were mismatched. Systems overlapped in strange ways. If one system failed, another would take over. These ships were heavy, slow, and difficult to destroy. They were built from scrap, alien wreckage, and outdated human designs. The council would have laughed if they had seen them. But these ships were not meant to impress. They were meant to endure. Observer Kale finally convinced the council to allow closer observation. A remote sensor array was placed near a human test region. What it recorded confused the analysts. Human ships were deliberately pushed beyond safe limits. Reactors were overloaded on purpose. Hulls were stressed until they cracked. Crews accepted the danger calmly. When a ship failed, the crew evacuated if possible. If not, the ship transmitted its final data burst and went silent. The next ship was always better. Human training changed as well. Soldiers were taught to expect systems to break. Pilots trained with faulty controls. Commanders planned battles, assuming communications would fail. This was not desperation. It was design. Humanity was building forces that functioned best when conditions were worst. The Council still believed humanity lacked true weapons. They defined weapons as devices of overwhelming destruction. Humans defined weapons differently. To them, information was a weapon. Time was a weapon. Adaptation was the most dangerous weapon of all. At the edge of human space, a small alien defense platform malfunctioned. It drifted slightly off its assigned position. Humans noticed within hours. They did not attack. They observed. They tested its response times. They learned how long it took to reset after each scan. Then they sent a single unmanned craft straight toward it. The platform fired and destroyed the craft. It shut down for 12 seconds to cool. 12 seconds was enough. Humans recorded everything. Days later, another unmanned craft approached. Then another. Each one changed its behavior based on the previous failure. The platform fired again and again. On the 7th attempt, the platform failed completely. Not destroyed. Disabled. Humans moved in and dismantled it without resistance. The Council received a report and dismissed it as a local error. They did not see the pattern. Humanity was not attacking randomly. They were mapping failure points. Learning where systems broke. Learning how long recovery took. Learning how to turn defense into weakness. On Earth, memorial walls grew longer. Families grieved quietly. There were no parades. No celebrations of loss. Humanity respected the cost of progress. But they did not stop. Each name on the wall became part of a larger calculation. Every sacrifice made the next step safer for someone else. Kale watched human data networks evolve. Failures were tagged, categorized, and fed into learning systems. Humans used artificial intelligence not to predict victory, but to predict breakdown. They asked their machines a single question: what fails next? Then they prepared for it. The first hybrid weapons emerged quietly. They did not fire beams or tear space apart. They interfered. They confused. They caused enemy systems to behave slightly wrong. A delay here. A misalignment there. Enough to trigger chain failures. Humanity had learned that complex systems were fragile. They did not need to destroy them. They only needed to push them toward collapse. A council general scoffed when told of these developments. They build garbage and call it strength, he said. The supreme arbiter agreed. Quantity over quality always fails. The council believed perfection was power. Humanity believed survival was. The first test of this belief came without warning. An alien patrol entered human space, confident and unafraid. Their ships were advanced, optimized, and powerful. Human sensors detected them immediately. No alarms were raised. No fleets were launched. Instead, small human craft moved into position. They did not engage directly. They forced the patrol to react. Every reaction triggered a small failure. Cooling systems worked harder. Targeting systems recalibrated. Communications lagged. One human craft was destroyed. Then another. The patrol felt victorious. Then their own systems began to fail. Not all at once. One by one. The patrol retreated, confused and damaged, unsure of what had happened. The council received the report. For the first time, laughter did not follow. The encounter did not fit any model. Humanity had not won by strength. They had won by understanding failure better than their enemy. Kale recorded the moment carefully. Humanity does not fear breaking. Kale wrote. They have learned to break the enemy instead. Far from the council chamber, Humanity continued its work. They were still losing ships, still losing people. But now, each failure carried purpose. Humanity had taken the thing the galaxy feared most and turned it into a weapon. The Galactic Council believed the border incident was an accident. Advanced fleets did not retreat from scrap-built ships. Systems did not fail without cause. The Council labeled the event a technical anomaly and returned to its long-term projections. Humanity was still expected to fall. Confidence remained strong. That confidence would soon be tested. The next encounter was not an accident. It was planned. An alien patrol group entered a region near human space that had once been ignored. The area contained old mining routes and abandoned relay paths. To the Council, it was empty and worthless. To humans, it was perfect. Sensors across the region activated quietly. No alarms were broadcast. No warnings were sent. Humanity did not announce itself. The alien patrol moved in standard formation. Their ships were sleek and powerful, designed for dominance and efficiency. Their commanders expected no resistance. Humanity was classified as a failing species. This was supposed to be a routine show of presence. Nothing more. Human ships waited in the dark. They were scattered, silent, and unconnected in obvious ways. There was no central command ship, no visible leader. Each unit operated independently, guided by shared objectives rather than direct orders. If one ship failed, the others would continue. The first human craft appeared suddenly, drifting into the patrol's path. It looked damaged. Power levels were unstable. The alien commander ordered a warning shot. The human craft did not respond. The second shot destroyed it completely. The patrol recorded the kill. Confidence increased. Then the patrol's targeting system recalibrated itself, without command. A minor delay. Less than a second. The crew dismissed it. Another human craft appeared, moving faster than expected. It fired no weapons. It passed through the patrol's formation and vanished. A sensor array on one alien ship went offline. The crew began diagnostics. No cause was found. Human ships began to appear in irregular patterns. Some retreated immediately. Some advanced too close. Others drifted as if powerless. Each movement forced the patrol to react. Every reaction consumed energy. Every adjustment pushed their systems closer to stress limits. The alien commander ordered full engagement. Weapons fired. Space filled with light and heat. Several human ships were destroyed. Debris scattered across the region. To the patrol, this looked like victory. Humans were dying quickly. But something felt wrong. The human ships did not flee. They did not protect each other. They behaved as if loss was expected. Then the first major failure occurred. A cooling system overloaded on one alien ship. It shut down temporarily to prevent damage. Another ship adjusted its position to cover the gap. Its navigation system lagged. Communications between the ships slowed. Commands arrived late. Formation began to break. Human ships moved closer. They did not attack directly. They passed near the alien vessels, releasing small devices that attached briefly before burning away. The devices caused no immediate damage. They only altered sensor readings by tiny amounts. Enough to confuse targeting systems. Enough to force recalibration. The patrol tried to pull back. Engines responded slowly. Power distribution failed to balance correctly. One ship collided with another during the retreat. Shields flared and collapsed. Human ships moved in and fired short, precise bursts. Not to destroy, but to disable. Weapon systems went offline. Navigation failed. Within minutes, the patrol was no longer a unit. It was a collection of damaged ships struggling to function. Humanity lost ships in the engagement. Many were destroyed. Their crews died. But the human formation did not collapse. Each loss triggered adjustments. New patterns emerged. The longer the fight continued, the worse conditions became for the aliens. The alien commander finally ordered a full retreat. This was unheard of. Retreat from a weaker species was considered shameful, but survival demanded it. The remaining ships fled the region, damaged and confused. Humanity did not pursue. They did not celebrate. They gathered data. Across human space, analysts reviewed the engagement in real time. Every failure was logged. Every success was questioned. The goal was not to win one battle. It was to understand the enemy completely. On Earth, Director Hale received the report. Casualties were high. Losses were heavy. She closed her eyes for a moment. Then she spoke. "We held," she said. "That was the test." Observer Kale watched the battle unfold through fragmented sensor data. The results shook long-held beliefs. Humanity had not relied on superior firepower. They had not relied on numbers. They had relied on forcing the enemy to operate outside perfection. The aliens lost not because humans were stronger, but because humans were prepared to fight in chaos. Kale submitted a report to the council. It was brief and direct. This was not a random encounter. Humanity planned this engagement. Their losses did not weaken them. They strengthened them. The council chamber was quiet after the report. No laughter followed. No immediate dismissal. A senior general spoke at last. "They lost more ships than we did," he said. "That proves nothing." Kale replied calmly. "They expected to lose ships. We did not expect to lose control." The Supreme Arbiter ordered further observation. For the first time, humanity was upgraded from doomed to unpredictable. It was a small change. But in the galaxy, small changes often came before disasters. Far from the Council's reach, human crews recovered wreckage and recorded names of the fallen. Work resumed without delay. Humanity had made first contact not with words, but with action. The galaxy had met humans in battle for the first time, and the result had not gone as expected. The report from the border engagement spread through the Galactic Council like a slow infection. At first, it was dismissed. Then it was questioned. Finally, it was examined in silence. Humanity had not won by the Council's definition, but something far more dangerous had occurred. The Council's certainty had cracked. The Supreme Arbiter called an emergency session. The chamber filled quickly. This time, there was no laughter. Holographic recordings of the battle played in the center of the room. Council members watched human ships move without pattern, without hesitation. They watched advanced alien systems fail one after another. No single failure caused defeat. It was the accumulation that broke the patrol. A senior strategist spoke carefully. "Their ships are inferior. Their weapons are crude. Yet our forces lost control of the engagement." Another council member responded sharply. "Control is irrelevant if they bleed faster." The debate began, but it lacked confidence. The council had never faced an enemy that accepted loss as a strategy. Observer Kale stood when permitted. "Humans do not fight to preserve assets," Kale said. "They fight to gather information. Each loss increases their effectiveness." Several council members reacted with discomfort. Sacrifice on that scale was considered irrational. To humans, it was simply cost. The council reviewed updated predictions. The extinction timeline shifted again. Humanity's survival probability rose beyond acceptable margins. The system could no longer guarantee their collapse. This was not supposed to happen. The Council had built its authority on certainty. On Earth, humanity did not pause to reflect on its success. The battle was already old data. Engineers adjusted designs. Pilots trained for worse conditions. Commanders planned engagements, assuming the enemy would learn. Humanity did not underestimate the Council. They expected escalation. They were right. The Supreme Arbiter issued a new directive. Human space was to be restricted further. Trade routes closed completely. Observation drones increased. Limited engagement authorization was granted. The Council did not yet call it war. They believed pressure would force humanity to break. Instead, pressure refined them. Human supply networks adapted quickly. Closed routes became irrelevant. Local production increased. Systems were simplified to reduce dependency. Humanity treated isolation as an advantage. Without outside interference, coordination became cleaner, faster. Kale observed a disturbing shift in human behavior. Fear of extinction had transformed into focus. There were no mass protests, no internal collapse. Instead, humanity displayed unity without uniformity. Different groups pursued different solutions, all feeding into a shared goal: survival. The Council authorized a show of force. A small task force was dispatched to demonstrate overwhelming power. The intent was psychological. Destroy a human outpost. Send a message. The task force entered human-controlled space openly. Human sensors detected them immediately. No attempt was made to hide. Director Hale reviewed the incoming data. "They want us to react," she said. "So we won't." The human outpost evacuated hours before the task force arrived. When the alien fleet fired, they destroyed empty structures. The explosion was broadcast across council channels. The message was clear. "This is your future." Humanity responded with silence. The task force lingered longer than planned. Systems remained active. Crews stayed alert. Nothing happened. Then minor failures began. Power fluctuations. Communication delays. Navigation drift. The fleet commander ordered diagnostics. No external cause was found. Human drones, barely detectable, moved through the fleet's sensor blind spots. They did not attack. They listened. They recorded. Human analysts learned how long alien crews could remain alert, how stress affected performance, how command efficiency declined over time. When the task force finally withdrew, humanity did not pursue. They had gained what they wanted. The council received conflicting reports. The show of force had succeeded. The outpost was gone. Yet the task force reported system degradation without cause. The council began to realize that even when humanity did nothing, it was still learning. Fear entered the chamber quietly. A council elder spoke words that had not been spoken in centuries. "What if we misjudge them?" The supreme arbiter did not respond immediately. Misjudgment implied weakness. The council did not admit weakness. Instead, the arbiter authorized a more decisive solution. "Total human annihilation planning begins," it declared. "We will remove the variable." Observer Kale felt a rare emotion. Alarm. Kale reviewed human data one final time before the directive took effect. Humanity was not building a single massive fleet. They were building many small ones. They were not defending Earth alone. They were preparing multiple fallback positions. Humanity was planning beyond survival. They were planning continuity. Kale submitted a final warning. Annihilation will not end them quickly. It will spread them. The warning was archived without discussion. On Earth, Director Hale received confirmation of increased alien fleet movement. She gathered her team. "They're afraid now," she said. "That means they'll make mistakes." No one smiled. They knew the cost of what was coming. Humanity did not celebrate the Council's fear. They prepared for its consequences. As the Council finalized plans for total destruction, a truth settled into the chamber, unspoken but heavy. Humanity was no longer a fading problem. They were a growing risk. And for the first time, the Galactic Council feared a species it had already declared dead. The Armada arrived without ceremony. No warnings were sent. No demands were made. Across deep space, alien fleets moved in perfect alignment, their numbers beyond anything humanity had faced before. To the Galactic Council, this was not a battle. It was a correction, a final act to erase a mistake. Earth detected them hours before arrival. Sensors screamed across human networks. There was no panic. No public broadcasts filled with fear. Humanity had prepared for this night long before the Council made its decision. Evacuation protocols activated silently. Underground cities sealed. Orbital stations altered course. Earth did not sleep. It moved. Director Hale stood in the primary command center as reports flowed in. Evacuation success rates were within projections. Casualties were already unavoidable. She accepted that without hesitation. "Proceed," she said. Her voice did not rise. There was no time for emotion. When the alien armada entered Earth's orbit, the sky changed. Stars disappeared behind massive hulls. Shadows fell across continents. To those still on the surface, it felt like the planet itself was being judged. The first strikes targeted military infrastructure. Bases vanished in white fire. Defense grids collapsed under overwhelming force. Humanity's orbital defenses fought briefly, then fell. The Council watched the attack through live feeds. This was strength as they understood it. Absolute. Unquestioned. Cities burned. Oceans boiled near impact zones. The Supreme Arbiter recorded the moment. Human resistance eliminated. It declared, But resistance had never been the goal. Human fleets did not rush to defend Earth. They did not form a last stand in orbit. Instead, they vanished. Small groups slipped away through hidden routes. Others remained behind only long enough to transmit data. Every alien weapon discharge was recorded. Every targeting adjustment was analyzed. Earth was dying, but humanity was still learning. On the surface, evacuation shelters sealed as shockwaves rolled across the land. Millions did not escape in time. Humanity paid for every hour they gained with lives. There were no heroic last messages broadcast to the stars. No cries for mercy. Only silence and work. Alien commanders reported minimal resistance. The destruction was efficient, clean, as planned. The council relaxed. The variable was being removed. Then strange reports began to arrive. Human signals were increasing, not decreasing. They were not coming from Earth. They were coming from elsewhere. Deep space relays activated beyond expected ranges. Human fleets appeared far from the battle, moving with purpose. Observer Kale watched the data with growing dread. Earth was burning, but humanity was not ending. The Council had focused on the planet. Humanity had moved beyond it. As the Armada continued its assault, human probes slipped through the chaos. They mapped alien formations. They measured response times. They recorded command hierarchies. The aliens believed they were unseen. They were wrong. One alien cruiser suffered a sudden system failure. It drifted out of formation and was destroyed by friendly fire. The event was dismissed as combat stress. Then another ship lost power briefly. Then another. Minor issues. Expected during large operations. But the pattern was familiar. Humanity was present. On Earth, Director Hale received confirmation that primary fallback populations were secure. Humanity's core knowledge and leadership had survived. She looked at the image of Earth burning on the main display. "We did what we could," she said quietly. There were no replies. Everyone understood what had been lost. The Council declared Earth neutralized. Orders were given to prepare for withdrawal. The message was meant to end the matter. Instead, it marked the beginning of something worse. As the alien armada repositioned, human attacks began. Not from Earth. From the dark. Supply ships vanished. Communication relays failed. Human fleets struck where defenses were weakest. They did not seek victory. They sought disruption. The Council realized too late that Earth had been a trap. Not for the Armada, but for their attention. Humanity had allowed their homeworld to burn to gain time. To gain information. To spread. Kale submitted an urgent report. Earth was never the final target. Kale wrote. It was the price humanity was willing to pay. The Supreme Arbiter read the report in silence. The feed still showed Earth in flames. But beyond the burning planet, human forces were multiplying, moving, adapting. The Council had destroyed a world. Humanity had sacrificed it. Across human networks, a single message circulated. It was not broadcast publicly. It was shared quietly among crews and survivors. We are still here. Continue. The night Earth burned would be remembered across the galaxy as a decisive victory. That was how the Council would record it. But history would tell a different story. Earth was not the end of humanity. It was the moment humanity stopped fighting for a planet and began fighting for its future. The galaxy expected silence after Earth burned. That was how it always happened. When a homeworld fell, a species collapsed into confusion and grief. The Galactic Council believed humanity would scatter and fade. Instead, something else happened. Human signals multiplied. Across distant systems, alarms triggered without warning. Supply convoys disappeared. Communication relays failed one after another. None of these attacks were large. None were dramatic. But together, they formed a pattern. Humanity was no longer defending. Humanity was hunting. Human fleets moved through forgotten routes the Council had abandoned centuries ago. Old mining tunnels, unstable hyperlanes, paths considered too dangerous for regular travel. Humans used them anyway. Losses were high, but the routes worked. Where alien fleets moved with caution, humans moved with acceptance. Danger was expected. Director Hale coordinated from a mobile command vessel far from Earth's ruins. Humanity no longer relied on a single command center. Leadership was distributed. If one node fell, others continued. Hale issued objectives, not orders. Disrupt, she said. Delay. Learn. The first confirmed strike shocked the council. A major logistics hub went dark. No explosion was detected. The station simply shut down. Human teams had infiltrated its systems weeks earlier, using data gathered during the attack on Earth. When the time came, they triggered cascading failures. The station became useless without being destroyed. Alien commanders struggled to respond. Their fleets were powerful, but rigid. Orders flowed through central authorities. When communications failed, hesitation followed. Humanity exploited that hesitation. Attacks came in waves, each one slightly different. What worked once would not work again. Humans adapted faster than responses could be issued. Observer Kale followed the growing chaos, with grim understanding. Humanity had moved from survival to strategy. They were no longer reacting. They were shaping the battlefield. In one system, a human fleet attacked an alien shipyard. They did not engage the warships. They targeted construction frames. Half-built vessels were sabotaged, not destroyed. Repairs would take years. Resources were wasted. The damage was invisible but lasting. The Council demanded stronger action. More fleets were deployed. The galaxy began to feel the strain. Supply lines stretched thin. Systems once considered secure now required constant patrols. Humanity had forced the Council to defend everywhere. Human losses were severe. Ships were destroyed regularly. Crews were lost. But humanity did not slow. Each loss refined tactics. Each defeat improved the next engagement. To humans, survival did not mean avoiding death. It meant making death meaningful. The Council attempted to predict human movements. The models failed. Humans did not repeat strategies. They did not protect territory in expected ways. Sometimes they abandoned strong positions without explanation. Other times they defended worthless regions fiercely. The Council could not understand the logic, because the logic was not territorial. It was systemic. On a remote Council world, a civilian population experienced its first human attack. Power grids failed. Food distribution systems collapsed. No cities were destroyed. No civilians were harmed directly. The message was clear. Humanity could reach anyone, and they chose restraint. This disturbed the Council more than destruction would have. Weak species sought revenge. Predators sought domination. Humanity sought balance. Kale submitted another report. Humans are demonstrating control, not conquest. This limits our response options. The report was met with silence. In human space, survivors of Earth trained new recruits. Stories of the burning world were shared without hatred. Grief became motivation, not rage. Humanity did not fight to punish the Council. They fought to ensure survival for whatever came next. A major turning point came when a Council capital relay station went offline. It was a critical node. The Council's communications slowed across multiple regions. Emergency protocols activated. Human signatures were detected nearby. For the first time, the Council capital felt exposed. The Supreme Arbiter addressed the chamber. This escalation cannot continue, it said. Humanity must be contained. But containment required understanding, and understanding was what the Council lacked. Human fleets withdrew before reinforcements arrived. They left behind nothing but disrupted systems and unanswered questions. The galaxy was learning a new reality. Humanity was not a single enemy. It was a method, a way of fighting that spread uncertainty. Director Hale reviewed casualty reports. The numbers were grim. She approved the next phase anyway. They see us now, she said. That means they must divide their attention. That is our advantage. Kale watched the strategic map change. Council control zones shrank, not through loss of territory, but through loss of confidence. Systems began making independent decisions. Unity weakened. Humanity had not destroyed the Council's fleets. They had done something far more dangerous. They had shown the galaxy that the Council was not untouchable. As human strikes continued across multiple sectors, one truth became clear. The night Earth burned had not ended humanity. It had freed them. Humanity was no longer bound to one world. They had become a moving force, striking from the shadows, reshaping the balance of power with patience and purpose. The Galactic Council had fought wars for thousands of cycles, but none like this. There were no clear fronts, no final battles to prepare for. Humanity did not advance in lines or claim territory. They appeared, disrupted, and vanished. The Council's greatest strength, centralized control, had become its greatest weakness. Council fleets began to hesitate. Commanders waited for confirmation that never arrived. Communication delays grew longer as more relays failed. Human attacks were not overwhelming, but they were constant. Fatigue spread through alien ranks. Humanity had turned time itself into a weapon. Observer Kale watched the conflict evolve with a sense of inevitability. Humanity was no longer reacting to Council actions. They were shaping decisions before they were made. Every Council move was anticipated and quietly countered. The prediction engines, once flawless, now produced conflicting futures. Humanity existed in too many places at once. On human vessels, command structures were simple. If a leader fell, another took over without ceremony. Orders were flexible. Objectives changed in real time. Humans did not require approval to act. They were trusted to decide. This freedom made them impossible to predict. A council general demanded decisive action. "We must crush them," he argued. "This uncertainty is unacceptable." The supreme arbiter remained silent. Crushing humanity now required resources the council no longer controlled efficiently. The cost was rising too fast. Human strikes reached deeper into council space. Older core systems, long considered untouchable, experienced disruptions. Power fluctuations, navigation errors, minor but unsettling. Civilian populations began to notice. Confidence in the Council's protection weakened. Humanity's restraint remained deliberate. They avoided mass civilian casualties. They disabled infrastructure rather than destroy it. This choice confused the Council's narrative. Humanity was not acting like a defeated species or a conquering one. They were acting like guardians of balance. Kale studied human communications intercepted during raids. There were no chants of revenge, no hatred-filled messages. Most transmissions were technical, calm, focused. Humanity had processed its grief and moved beyond it. The Council attempted to negotiate indirectly through smaller species. Messages were sent offering limited autonomy. Humanity ignored them, not out of arrogance, but because the offers changed nothing. Survival required more than permission. In a distant system, a human fleet was cornered by superior alien forces. The Council expected annihilation. Instead, the human commander split the fleet. Half escaped through unstable routes. The rest stayed behind to delay pursuit. This sacrifice bought time. The escapees carried critical data. The loss strengthened humanity elsewhere. The Council celebrated the destruction of the trapped fleet. The victory was hollow. Humanity's operations did not slow. They accelerated. A disturbing realization spread through the Council. Humanity's population was no longer concentrated. Earth had been a single point of failure. Now there were many. Humanity had learned from loss. They would not allow extinction to hinge on one world again. Kale added a final note to the Observer Archive. Humanity cannot be ended through destruction alone. They regenerate through adaptation. Council members began to speak of humanity in cautious terms. Not as prey, not as enemies, as a phenomenon, something that grew stronger under pressure. Fear began to replace arrogance. Human crews trained new generations aboard mobile habitats. Children learned in transit, studying systems, failures, and history. Earth was taught as a lesson, not a wound. Humanity remembered, but it did not freeze. The Supreme Arbiter reviewed a classified report showing declining Council influence. Smaller species began resisting directives. The Council's authority depended on the belief that it was unbeatable. Humanity had shattered that belief. For the first time, surrender was discussed. Not publicly, not officially, but in private, the question was asked. What would it cost to stop this war? Humanity delivered the answer indirectly. A Council archive world, filled with historical records, experienced a system's failure. Human teams stabilized the planet's core systems without being detected. They left a single data packet behind. It contained no threat, Only a message. We could have erased this. We chose not to. The message spread quietly among council members. Humanity had demonstrated reach, restraint, and choice. They were not fighting to win. They were fighting to be acknowledged. Kale understood the truth before the council did. Humanity was no longer a species struggling to survive. They were a force shaping the future of the galaxy. A species that would not end, because it no longer existed as something that could be erased. As the war dragged on, one conclusion became unavoidable. The longer the conflict continued, the stronger humanity became, and the Council, for all its power, was running out of ways to stop them. The Council had underestimated humanity for centuries. They had judged them weak, emotional, and doomed. Yet now, after countless battles and strategic maneuvers, humanity stood at the edge of the Galactic Council's central chamber, not with fleets surrounding the planet, not with weapons primed to destroy. They stood with calm, disciplined formations, having reached the Council's homeworld unchallenged. Alien commanders were stunned. Every protocol had failed. Every prediction had been wrong. Humanity had not only survived, they had arrived at the heart of the galaxy. The Supreme Arbiter convened an emergency session. The chamber filled with elders, generals, and advisors. Every projection of human capabilities had failed. Reports streamed in from every sector. Supply lines had been disrupted. Fleets had been disabled without direct confrontation. Core systems of distant council worlds had experienced unexplained failures. Humanity had reached the council not as conquerors, but as masters of adaptation. The chamber was silent, the weight of realization pressing down on every member. Director Hale led the human delegation. She did not wear armor. She did not wield weapons. Humanity had chosen a different approach. The council expected aggression. Instead, humans projected control and focus. They presented no demands, no ultimatums. Their presence alone carried a message stronger than fleets of warships. The Supreme Arbiter's gaze rested on her, and for the first time, doubt replaced certainty. A general broke the silence. Why are they here without attacking? Are they bluffing? His question went unanswered. The Supreme Arbiter's voice, usually heavy with command, sounded uncertain. Perhaps we underestimated them. Even the Council's oldest members, who had predicted humanity's extinction, could not fully comprehend what they were witnessing. Humanity's choice was deliberate. They had reached the Council not to destroy, but to offer understanding. Director Hale spoke calmly. We did not come to conquer. We did not come to beg. We came to ensure the galaxy survives, not as subjects, but as guardians. Her words echoed through the chamber. No one moved. No one interrupted. The Alien Council had never encountered an opponent who chose restraint over vengeance. The Supreme Arbiter leaned forward. You have destroyed our predictions. You have evaded every fleet. You have crippled our systems. And yet you offer peace. Director Hale nodded. Not peace as a surrender, but as a recognition. We do not seek domination. We seek survival. And in survival, we will protect others as we protect ourselves. Council members whispered among themselves. The galaxy had been ruled by power, by fear, and by control. No species had ever offered mercy after demonstrating the ability to destroy. The idea was incomprehensible. Humanity had rewritten the rules without firing a single final, decisive blow. The Supreme Arbiter requested proof of humanity's intentions. Hale directed human fleets to withdraw from Council-controlled systems. They left evidence of their presence, but no casualties. Every system restored itself without signs of destruction. Intelligence gathered from previous engagements was offered voluntarily. Humans shared knowledge, showing both capability and restraint. The Council could not ignore the magnitude of what had been done. Humanity had demonstrated a new type of strength. Observer Kale documented every detail with urgency. Humanity had transformed the Council's understanding of power. It was no longer measured in fleets or weapons. It was measured in foresight, adaptation, and restraint. Every member of the Council began to realize that underestimating this species had been catastrophic, not because humans were more numerous or stronger, but because they operated on principles no one had calculated. A debate erupted among Council members. Some demanded immediate action, claiming that even mercy was a weakness. Others argued that humanity's restraint was deliberate and that any attack could provoke unpredictable retaliation. The chamber remained divided. The supreme arbiter, who had never displayed hesitation, finally spoke. Perhaps we have been blind. They are not a threat to be eliminated. They are a force we cannot ignore, but also a force we cannot control through aggression. Director Hale listened silently. Her presence was steady. Humanity had anticipated this indecision. They did not act while the council debated. They waited. Restraint required patience. Humanity understood that showing mercy at the right moment was more powerful than any weapon. Finally, the supreme arbiter rose. The chamber fell silent again. "We accept your offer," it said carefully. "Humanity will not be destroyed. You may operate freely, under the understanding that your actions will not destabilize the galaxy." It was a grudging acknowledgement, but it marked a turning point. The council, for all its power, had bowed to strategy and restraint rather than force. Hale's delegation acknowledged the decision with a single nod. No celebrations, no boasting. Humans did not require recognition for compliance. They required only that their purpose be understood. "We will protect life, not to conquer, but to ensure the balance remains," Hale said quietly. The words carried weight far beyond the chamber. They signaled the birth of a new order. Outside the council chamber, fleets had begun to withdraw. Human ships returned to forward positions, ready to adapt again, but not to attack. They had proven a point that would resonate across the galaxy. Humanity could have destroyed worlds, fleets, and civilizations. Instead, they chose strategy over slaughter, patience over rage. Their power had been recognized not because of destruction, but because of choice. Cale recorded the event in the Observer archives. "Humanity," Cale wrote, "has demonstrated a type of power no council has accounted for. They wield restraint, adaptation, and foresight as weapons. Their choice is a lesson that may take centuries for other species to understand." The council left the chamber with unease. Their victory was not a victory at all. Humanity had arrived at the edge of annihilation, survived, and offered mercy instead of vengeance. Every member understood that the galaxy would never again underestimate this species. The supreme arbiter, once confident and unyielding, finally acknowledged a truth that had eluded generations. Humanity had redefined what it meant to be powerful. For humanity, the battle was not over. They would continue to prepare, to adapt, and to survive. But they had made a choice that shocked the galaxy. To show mercy where none was expected, to offer strategy where aggression was anticipated, and to prove that a species once called weak could become the greatest force the galaxy had ever seen. The Galactic Council had faced threats before. Entire species had risen and fallen under its scrutiny. Yet none had behaved like humanity. The last confrontation, the arrival of humans at the Council's heart, had shaken centuries of arrogance. Every prediction engine, every calculation, had failed. Humanity was no longer a species to be dismissed. They were a variable the Council could not control, and for the first time, the Council understood that fear and caution were necessary. Inside the chamber, debates raged over what to do next. Some members argued for reconciliation, acknowledging that humanity's restraint showed wisdom beyond their understanding. Others insisted that humanity's capability, now demonstrated across multiple systems, required strict monitoring and control. Neither side fully grasped that humans had already rewritten the rules of engagement. They did not play by the old patterns. They were not bound to fear, pride, or conquest. They were unpredictable, adaptive, and patient. Observer Cale watched every discussion closely. Humanity's strategy was clear: survival, adaptation, and knowledge accumulation. Every loss, every retreat, every apparent weakness was part of a larger design. Cale noted in the Observer archives, "This species does not fight to dominate. They fight to endure, to learn, and to prepare for consequences we cannot fully anticipate." The Council, for all its power, had never faced a species that considered failure a tool rather than a setback. Across human-controlled space, preparation continued quietly. Earth, though scarred and partially destroyed, had become a symbol rather than a stronghold. Humanity no longer depended on a single world. Mobile command centers, distributed fleets, and hidden colonies ensured that survival did not hinge on one location. Director Hale oversaw operations with calm authority. Every decision was measured, every loss calculated. Humanity had learned the most critical lesson of all. Resilience was more dangerous than brute strength. The first human offensive after Earth's fall was subtle but devastating. The Council's logistical networks, long assumed secure, began to fail. Supply convoys vanished in distant sectors. Communication arrays experienced temporary malfunctions that spread confusion. Ships that entered human-monitored space often returned crippled or delayed, not destroyed but impaired. The Council struggled to understand the pattern. Nothing fit conventional strategy. Humanity was no longer reactive. They were shaping outcomes, without direct confrontation. Kale documented a new trend. Human adaptability had reached a point where predictions were no longer reliable. The species was capable of creating temporary setbacks to analyze enemy responses. They deliberately exposed vulnerabilities, observed outcomes, and adjusted tactics in real time. Losses were intentional, data-gathering exercises rather than defeats. Every failed mission became a stepping stone to greater understanding. Inside the council chamber, a young advisor finally admitted what many feared to acknowledge. We have underestimated them for centuries. They are not merely surviving. They are learning faster than we can respond. The supreme arbiter, usually decisive and commanding, nodded slowly. This was not an admission of fear aloud, but the silence that followed carried weight. Humanity was rewriting the galaxy's understanding of power. Strength was no longer measured in fleets, numbers, or weaponry. Humanity measured it in adaptation, foresight, and the capacity to survive mistakes. In one sector, human forces intercepted a council supply fleet. No ships were destroyed. No colonies were attacked. Instead, navigational systems were subtly sabotaged. Convoys arrived late. Communications were misrouted. The council expected chaos. They received efficiency in disguise. Human crews analyzed every response, recording council protocols, weaknesses, and procedural delays. Each engagement left the council more vulnerable, even as humans appeared to act without aggression. Back on Earth, reconstruction proceeded steadily. Shelter populations trained the next generation in survival, tactics, and adaptation. They were educated not to fear the council, not to worship their lost world, and not to seek revenge. Their training emphasized understanding systems, predicting failure, and preparing for unpredictable threats. Humanity had learned that the galaxy could not be controlled by force alone, and they prepared accordingly. The council attempted to recalibrate strategies. Observation drones multiplied. Fleets patrolled more frequently. Automated defenses were upgraded. Yet human adaptability rendered most measures ineffective. The council realized, too late, that their previous reliance on rigid command structures and centralized control had become a liability. Humanity had exploited these weaknesses at every opportunity, turning predictability into vulnerability. Kale summarized the situation in the Observer Archives. Humanity is no longer a species. They are a force. They act not out of anger or fear, but with precision shaped by calculation and survival instinct. Traditional measures of power do not apply. They cannot be contained, predicted, or destroyed without incurring unacceptable risk. The notes circulated among council analysts, causing discomfort and debate. The council had always believed that knowledge and control guaranteed dominance. Humanity had proven that neither could contain them. Director Hale implemented new tactics. Small fleets acted independently, carrying out precise operations without central coordination. Data collected from previous encounters allowed humans to exploit council weaknesses before responses could be mounted. Communications relays, supply depots, and even training programs of smaller council species were disrupted subtly, leaving no trace of human aggression. Humanity fought not to conquer, but to ensure that no attack could be decisive. Each action, no matter how minor, reinforced resilience. The council convened again, more cautiously. "This is no longer a species we can ignore," one elder said. "We must assume that any engagement will result in unexpected outcomes." Our control is slipping. Silence followed. The supreme arbiter considered options. Every offensive measure would be countered, every prediction challenged. Humanity had transformed uncertainty into a weapon more dangerous than fleets of warships. For the first time in history, the Council began to fear the presence of a species they had once judged as doomed. Humanity had survived extinction, adapted through failure, and leveraged restraint as power. They had turned catastrophe into opportunity, weakness into advantage, and unpredictability into dominance. The galaxy would never again treat them as ordinary. Humanity's next moves remained deliberate and unseen. Their fleets moved through forgotten lanes, establishing hidden bases, securing resources, and training without interruption. Every encounter with Council forces added to their knowledge. Losses were calculated. Wins were strategic. Humanity did not rush for glory. They prepared, measured, and advanced. Observer Kale made a final note for the record. Humanity is a species that cannot be ended by destruction alone. Every loss strengthens them. Every setback teaches them. The Council must recognize that extinction is no longer a threat. Humanity has become a force beyond prediction, capable of surviving, adapting, and reshaping the galaxy itself. The galaxy had changed. What the Council had once assumed was a weak, doomed species had become a force none could ignore. Humanity had survived the destruction of Earth, the loss of fleets, and countless battles designed to erase them. They had adapted, learned, and grown stronger with every setback. Now, after years of patience and preparation, they had reached a stage the Council could neither predict nor control. Humanity was no longer merely surviving. They were rising. The Supreme Arbiter convened a special session. Every Council member, elder, and commander attended. The chamber, once confident and orderly, was tense with unease. Reports streamed in from across the galaxy. Council supply lines disrupted, fleets delayed, communication networks misrouted, strategic positions weakened without a single overt attack. Humanity had learned to fight without fighting, to weaken without destroying, to dominate without aggression. The Council had misjudged the very definition of strength. Director Hale addressed the chamber through holographic projection. She spoke with calm authority. We did not seek war. We did not seek revenge. We sought survival. We have endured loss, adapted through failure, and prepared for a future none of you anticipated. We stand not to conquer, but to ensure that life continues. That is our power. Her words carried weight beyond their meaning. The Council listened, uncertain whether to treat them as threats or as allies. Every Council member understood one undeniable fact. Humanity had rewritten the rules. Where others relied on fleets, numbers, or intimidation, humanity relied on adaptability, foresight, and resilience. They had turned losses into data, failures into tools, and chaos into strategy. Their survival was not luck. It was deliberate. It was precise. It was inevitable. Across human-controlled space, fleets moved with purpose. Not for conquest, not for vengeance, but for security. Supply networks were reestablished. Forward positions were secured. Hidden bases communicated silently through encrypted channels. Humanity had decentralized its command. No single loss could threaten continuity. No single attack could break them. Earth had burned, but humanity had not ended. It had multiplied. It had spread. It had learned. The Council attempted to respond. Fleets were dispatched to intercept human movements. Observation drones were launched in greater numbers. Security protocols were heightened. Yet humanity moved unpredictably. Small fleets infiltrated Council space, gathering intelligence, disrupting logistics, and retreating before any response could be coordinated. Every action left the Council scrambling. Every failure of response reinforced the lesson. Humanity could not be contained by conventional means. Observer Kale recorded these developments meticulously. Humanity, Kale wrote, is no longer a species that can be measured by conventional metrics. Their strength lies in adaptation, their strategy in patience, and their power in resilience. They survive not by dominance, but by understanding and preparing for consequences before they occur. Even the Council's oldest members, who had predicted humanity's extinction, could not deny the accuracy of the observation. On one frontier system, a human fleet intercepted a council patrol. The patrol expected an engagement. Instead, they were met with calculated distraction. Navigation systems were subtly altered, forcing confusion. Minor failures were introduced in power distribution, communications lagged, and command response time slowed. By the time the patrol realized the source of interference, humanity had withdrawn. The operation left no casualties, yet it shifted strategic balance, illustrating the full scope of human planning and patience. Director Hale's strategy was clear. Humanity would not seek immediate revenge or unnecessary conflict. They fought to ensure survival and to protect knowledge. Civilizations previously overlooked were shielded from council interference, not for conquest, but as a demonstration of capability and restraint. Humanity had become a force that demanded respect, not through destruction, but through calculated mastery of survival and influence. The council convened another emergency session. Debate was heated. Some members proposed preemptive annihilation. Others argued that humanity's restraint indicated a level of wisdom the council could not counter. The supreme arbiter remained silent, weighing options. For the first time in recorded history, the council did not have a clear path. Humanity's rise had created a new paradigm. War alone could not define victory or defeat. Adaptation had become the ultimate weapon. Cale observed that the council's internal cohesion was weakening. Smaller species began questioning authority. Their faith in the council's infallibility was eroding. Humanity had demonstrated that control was never absolute, that survival depended not on dominance, but on strategy, learning, and resilience. The galaxy was shifting. Slowly, imperceptibly, the balance of power was tilting. Across human space, new generations were trained in tactics, survival, and systems thinking. Children learned to anticipate failure, to innovate under pressure, and to understand threats before they appeared. Humanity was not merely preparing for war. It was preparing for survival in a galaxy that would always seek to test its limits. Earth was a lesson, not a liability. Humanity's rise was built on the understanding that knowledge and adaptation were more potent than fleets or weapons. Finally, the Supreme Arbiter addressed the chamber. Humanity is not to be underestimated. They survive where others would perish. They adapt where others would falter. Their power lies not in destruction, but in persistence. The words, long overdue, marked a turning point. Humanity had forced the council to recognize a truth it had ignored for centuries. Strength was not always measured in dominance. Sometimes it was measured in endurance, in patience, in the ability to learn and adapt faster than any force could respond. Director Hale concluded her message to the galaxy with clarity. We do not seek conquest. We do not seek vengeance. We have endured loss, learned from failure, and adapted beyond expectation. We rise not to destroy, but to survive, to protect, and to ensure that life itself continues. Humanity will endure. The Council and the galaxy understood the meaning. Humanity's rise was complete. They were no longer a species to be dismissed, no longer a variable to be calculated away. They had become a force that redefined survival, strategy, and power. The galaxy had witnessed the impossible. A species once judged weak, once thought doomed, had risen to dominate not through force, but through adaptation, patience, and indomitable will. Humanity had survived. Humanity had risen, and the galaxy would never forget.